And I've got Central City Business Association, Brendan Chase.
That red zone does sound like it's got a very exciting future for the city.
It does.
Mayor, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Brendan Chase, Chairman of the Central City Business Association. Probably firstly comment that we support the written submission of the New Zealand Property Council. But I also note that full and final settlements have a history of not being full and rarely being final. The CCBA has more than 400 members, and over 90% of our members are businesses rather than property owners. So we can offer a slightly different or additional perspective on the Global Settlement Agreement to the Property Council. The Central City remains a challenging environment for retail and hospitality businesses in particular, and the fact is that this is likely to continue to be the case for some time to come. The delivery of the anchor projects has become drawn out and it's taking much more time than was originally expected and stated, and businesses have made decisions to come into the Central City based on those original projections. The effects and costs to businesses of these delays, in our view, cannot be disassociated from the anchor projects. Actually, to do so would almost be cognitive dissonance. The blueprint one of the blueprint objectives is to restore and establish primacy of the Central City business district. And we would argue that strong actions are required to achieve this now, that it doesn't begin with the completion of the last anchor project. So in this regard, we suggest that the Global Settlement Agreement should acknowledge this by including fiscal capacity to fund activation activities, attraction initiatives, and in some instances relief initiatives through until the last of the anchor projects are completed, and perhaps slightly beyond. The Central City Action Plan addresses some of these matters. The Council and the CCBA have just undertaken a retail review of the Central City, and you'll hear about that tomorrow at the Development Forum meeting. Our plea is that these matters be given adequate resourcing, because although the Global Settlement Agreement is about things, people are also incredibly important. So here's a few comments or facts just ancillary to all of that. The accessible city has actually, and you won't like to hear this, has alienated a large portion of the Christchurch population. The Central City Business Association has always been a supporter of the Accessible City Plan, but there's much work to be done to educate the Christchurch population of how the city might function in the future, and that it's not the same as in the past. Premises costs are high for businesses in the Central City, much higher than they were pre-earthquake. The retail offering is still incomplete. It's become hard to attract new businesses to the Central City. 2 years ago, national consultants basically just started instructing international retailers and Australasian retailers to give Christchurch a wide berth. There's a tough operating environment in the Central City, especially for small businesses, some of which are failing. I received an email yesterday from an owner of a property in the central city, saying yet another of his retailers is closing the door. The east frame hasn't delivered the residential population boost that's promised, and it looks like that's going to take a very long time to be complete. And suburban malls are expanding. You'd all be aware that Maryvale Mall has submitted, or the owners of Maryvale Mall have submitted an application to expand, and we understand it's a non-notified application and probably meets the rules. So the central city has to compete with all of that. And we also understand that, as Brendan explained to us when he met us last week, that the powers of recovery powers are no longer really going to be executed to deal with matters like that. So that's my message. Happy to answer any questions.
Yep, Yanni, Glenn and Dion.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad you mentioned the land use planning. This is our opportunity to talk to government about things that can help the city. So I just really wanted to get a sense, do you think as part of this agreement, we should be being a lot clearer with central government about land use planning issues that are negatively impacting on the central city? Like you've mentioned Maryvale Mall and the other expansions that have been enabled to happen.
That's a hard question to ask because, you know, under the current rules, if we're not seeking to deny other people their property rights, but where the central city has to operate within that overall environment. So if they're entitled to do that, primacy of the central city is important. If it's not by the stick, maybe it needs to be aided with a carrot.
Seems, I mean, it's kind of hard to understand how we can keep funding in any sustainable way the changing retail patterns in our city while we're allowing huge expansion of shopping malls in the suburbs or more growth out in the surrounding districts. I'm sort of, I don't quite know what council could fund to ever combat that in any meaningful level other than land use planning.
Well, you can make the environment more competitive. You know, maybe it needs an initiative such as removing the rates differential in the central city. That could help.
Yep,
Right. Then how do we pay for the big anchor projects?
Well, that's you got to factor that in. You got to negotiate.
Glenn?
Thanks, Brendan. A question over the financial robustness of the paper for Thursday was brought up before. Have you heard any questions or concerns amongst your members over the robustness of the paper? So aside from any quantum in it.
The paper, sorry, I wasn't here earlier.
That we'll be deciding on or discussing and deliberating, deciding on Thursday.
No, I joined on that.
Yeah, I've always been an advocate for a special economic zone potentially within the 4 Avs after the earthquake, and might have stimulated a lot more activity in that space, and that would have been something the Crown could have done, but didn't. Just in terms of the agreement that we're looking at, we've heard one deputation say that they think we should stop, go back, try and renegotiate, get something better for Christchurch potentially, or give us more details and stuff like that. But from your point of view as a business association, do you think the certainty that this is giving and then putting the onus on us to deliver kind of outweighs some of those other arguments? Or are you guys looking for certainty and delivery? Or do you think there's more that we can do in this agreement to give more for the businesses in the central city?
Certainty and delivery are paramount. I guess what I'm talking about here is a fraction of the value of that settlement. I'm not sure that this is really consultation, you know, given that it's a week later and you're about to vote on it and make your decisions. It actually made me think of the assassination of President Anwar Sadat. I remember watching that 37 years ago on TV. A general stood up and said, "We've caught the assassins, they'll be given a fair trial and then executed." It feels a wee bit like that. You're going to proceed.
Okay. Execute.
So you would rather that we delayed the whole thing?
No, that's not what I said.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood.
No.
It was an interesting allegory.
I just got stuck on execute. I was like, oh dear. Who's this? But okay, so yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
I mean, I think the other stuff that you're talking about, we can get on and do some of that. You know, there is work that we have to do, and the Central City Action Plan is a good place to start that, I think.
Yeah, but it needs proper resourcing.
Yeah, I agree, and that's not necessarily in this. But
No, I know, but it's an opportunity.
Okay, well, look, thank you very much, Brendan, and thanks for you making a submission on behalf of the Central City Business Association. That's much appreciated. We're very aware of the issues in
Thank
the
you.
Central City and the
Appreciate the
challenges that
opportunity.
people face, so we'll certainly be taking that into account.